Greetings to everyone in the second part. Thanks to everyone who supports me in various ways. It motivates me very much to get better. Jimmy is with you as always, and we are starting. First story in the second part from the user. Own Antelope, let's listen. My wife's sister was recently found guilty of dealing to support her habit. She will be sentenced this week and is looking toward a long term because this is not her first time caught dealing. She has 3 children, 2 boys, 4 and 5, and a girl, 14. No one on her family's side wants to or are in a position to take the children except for me and my wife. However, I'm demanding 2 conditions. If we're going to take the children in, I want us to adopt them. I don't want 50 people looking over our shoulders trying to tell us what to do. If we're going to be legal responsible for them, I want to be able to parent them as we see fit. The second condition is that I'm willing to take the 2 boys, but not the girl. The 2 boys have not had any rules in their lives and are terrors, but they're still young and can be taught right from wrong. The girl has gone past the point of no return. She's been suspended from school several times for things like fighting and smoking illegal substances on school grounds. She once dated a 22-year-old with her mom's approval, and they all lived in the same apartment. That didn't last long, and now she's dating an 18-year-old who is a gang member. He was arrested when he was 14 on a home invasion charge, but was released because it was his first time arrested and his age. This is a mess, and we've been arguing about it for an entire week. I don't want to risk our financial and personal security, but my wife argued that we can't just throw her away. At this point, we're not even sleeping in the same bed, but I'm not willing to open our house up to the girl and her lifestyle. Author update this story. I left out a lot of info because I was in shock and still am. We're both in our late 20s, have been married for a little over 2 years, have no kids, and I just graduated with my advanced degree last year. Last month we were talking about maybe having kids when we're in our mid-30s and about where we want to go on our Christmas vacation. Last week my wife came home, sat me down, and told me we're taking in 3 kids. I know nothing about adoption laws, CPS, or anything related to raising children, much less troubled children. I knew what was going on with her sister and was told my wife's parents were going to take the kids in. Apparently, they decided they are too old to take care of 3 kids. Of everyone in her family, we are the most financially secure and have a house, so when everyone backed out, she volunteered without asking me. That was the crux of our argument, until I realized that it was happening with or without my agreement. That's when I told her we can take the boys, but not the girl, which started another round of arguments. I've never raised any kids, so Elle know I can't deal with the baggage that the girl will bring into our lives. I can't begin to tell you all how shocking the whole thing is. Sometimes I feel like I'm outside watching my life spin out of control. I want to thank you all for your insights, and especially and the people working in CPS and/or the legal system. Your advice is extremely helpful. User commented this story as a social worker for CPS cautious NAH. But you need to tread carefully because your demands may not line up with reality. 4- and 5-year-olds raised in a chaotic and traumatizing environment will absolutely have some behavioral problems, which you are relating to running wild. That may not be as easy to fix. They will need extensive therapy. Whether you adopt them or not will not be up to you. You can ask it, but you won't be able to demand it, nor expect it. It will be the choice of a judge, based on how much or little the parents comply with CPS requirements, how long the prison term is, etc. I would expect that you will be fostering the kids for a minimum of 12 months before you are allowed to start adoption procedures, depending on where you live. And yes, the courts and social workers will be up during that time, and 6 months after the adoption takes place. You need to think about that as a reality before commuting to these kids. Signing adoption papers as soon as they come to your home will not be an option unless both parents agree. Clear it with a judge, lawyers, psych evils, etc. It just won't happen that way. Where I disagree with most Redditors, though, is about taking in the 14-year-old being inappropriate. If you do not feel you can care for her, you shouldn't. But that shouldn't stop you from being a resources for the 2 kids that you are capable of protecting. I've been a long-term foster parent for children of friends and family, and I've done short-term foster care for kids in my office, anywhere from newborn to 17, a 14-year-old with gang affiliation, substance use, major trauma, and behavioral concerns, is not something most people with good intentions are equipped for. You can't just love and therapy all of those issues away. This kid sounds like she needs a higher level of care than you are equipped for, so you aren't wrong for recognizing that you can't give her what she needs. She needs an experienced parent with trauma-informed skills and a ton of one-on-one attention. You aren't an AH for having this boundary and understanding your limitations, and any social worker would tell you that. But do be prepared that taking the boys will not be as easy as you imagine, and you will not be able to demand adoption. If you take them, it will be a trial run, heavily supervised, and maybe adoption happens later. Reconsider your plans based on that knowledge, and decide if you are still willing. And call your social worker. You may not be interested at all once you see what the plan will look like. Author update the story in the second time. It's been a while and I decided to update since I saw some people are still reading my post and asking about my situation. I ended up leaving the house and talking to an attorney. Originally, I just wanted to insulate myself and my assets from any damages that might be caused. However, after talking to her about our state laws and talking to my family, I moved out and filed for divorce. I still love my ex and knew she will be financially strapped taking care of 3 kids. So I signed the house over to her, so at least she'll always have a roof over her head. I don't know the exact details, but the following is what I heard through friends. My ex got temporary guardianship of the kids. She moved the kids in and registered them at the local schools. The niece was suspended several times. My ex and her niece got into some heated argument about her skipping school and letting boys into the house while the ex was at work. The niece and her friends cleaned the house of all valuables one day while my ex was at work, and they left. No one knows where she's at. Her family thinks I'm the devil, and things would have gone much smoother if I stayed and helped her. Apparently her father and male cousins will rip my head off if we ever run into each other. What I think about this story, like I understand OOP's position. He was not prepared to suddenly be the parent to 3 kids, much less ones who are very troubled. You're not required to set yourself on fire to keep people warm. And where were this concerned father and brothers and relatives before the sister went to jail? Her teen daughter dated adult gang members. This outcome was predictable, and yeah, sometimes there are just things you can't handle, and you're not a bad person if you avoid them. Let's check the user's comments. I'm a social worker and former foster care caseworker. I specialized in working with teens, many of whom had psychobehavioral issues that kept them out of traditional foster care environments. I'm glad someone from my field popped up to comment. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they are the best placement for kids in these situations. The niece should not be fostered by someone who hasn't been trained, had experience with fostering troubled youths with a history of trauma, because there is a 1000% chance she's experienced multiple kinds of trauma at this point. And the nephews should really not be going to someone who's never even had kids before. But there isn't a DCFS in this entire country that isn't desperately short on foster care providers, particularly therapeutic ones, or ones who will accept teens. And who boy were his expectations unrealistic. This is not a once-a-week therapy situation for the nephews. They're going to need extensive behavioral intervention and years of intensive efforts at home. OOP's soon-to-be ex will have a hard time balancing their needs with her own. Career, dating, marrying, kids of her own. I just came to the realization that one of my friends is suffering from the road to hell is paved by those with good intentions. And to that effect, I realized he is a dumbass who isn't equipped for what he took on. He and his wife adopted a family of 4 kids who were previously abused. This kids had night terrors from previous abuse and would scream constantly. He told them to scream into their pillow. One didn't, and after a confrontation with his wife, he put the kid's face into the pillow himself. He claims this was years ago and that he's grown so much since then. Apologies, forgiveness, etc. But if he had to get physical, then he should not take on abused kids because he feels bad for them, especially if he's so ill-equipped to do so that his logical jump was to be physical. Second story from the user No Fishing. Let's listen. I got a job while I was in high school. It was with a friend of my father. I put away most of it and just bought myself some stuff I wanted, but my parents wouldn't buy for me. My parents aren't rich, but they do well enough. They wanted me to appreciate that material goods were paid for with my time. I didn't mind. I bought myself a PS4 and some games, which they made me share with my younger brother and sister. Once again, I didn't mind. I mostly played while they did homework or slept. When I graduated from high school, they said I had to start paying rent. That sucked because I was going to university in the fall and I was hoping to save up over the summer so I could work less during the school year. So I worked my off in school and at work. I ended up getting a job loading delivery trucks before school. And that sucked because I went to sleep at 7 p.m. most nights so I could get up early and go to work. I am about to graduate and I found a job in another province. I have already started doing my onboarding and online training. I will go from graduation to loading my car to leave. My parents had a graduation party for me where they tried to present me with a check for all the rent I paid, plus a pittance in interest. I looked at the check for about a minute and I started laughing. All I could think of was the fact that I had no social life during university. Because I was working, I didn't have any money in investments like my friends did, because they were taking my money. I asked them how they were doing this for my sister. They said they weren't, since she wasn't working while she went to school. I tire up the check and told them to shove it up their asses. I told them that when they compensated me for all the sleep I lost, 4 years of no social life during university and 4 summer vacations, I would speak to them again. I told my little brother not to get a job, or they would him over too. I went to my room, grabbed my computer, some clothes, my PS4, and my toiletries. My brother and sister can play on the PS5 my parents bought the family. They were yelling at me the whole time. I said if they touched me or tried to stop me, I would call the cops. I loaded up my car, that I paid for, I insure, and is registered to me. I drove to my friend's parents' house and had a bit of a breakdown. They let me stay there since she is away at university in another city. I blocked my parents and my brother and sister. I had already given notice at my job, so I called my boss and told him I was sick and would not be available for my last week. He said he understood and laughed. He said he was surprised I had kept working this close to graduation. My grandfather called me to talk a couple of days later. We went to Timmy's and he let me unload everything I felt. They took money from me that I could have used to make my life better. I didn't even have time for a girlfriend. My entire university romantic life was hooking up with a woman I work with when her ex-husband had the kids for the weekend. He said my parents' hearts were in the right place and that they thought they were helping me. I said they owed me 4 years of fun, of parties I was too tired to go to, of social events and networking I didn't do, all the shit they were subsidizing for my sister, and that they would end up subsidizing for my brother. He said he understood and hugged me. He is old, but I couldn't have gotten free of that hug if I tried. He asked me if I needed money to start my new job. I said I did not want anything that came from my parents. He gave me a cashier's check for about 3 times what my parents took from me. He said to use it however I wanted in my new life. He said it wasn't part of my inheritance or anything. It was a gift from him and something my grandma would have wanted me to have. My friends think I was unwise to tear up the check. Most of them agree with me about being pissed at my parents. Some family have called me to say I behaved terribly and that I owe my parents an apology. I thank them for the call or message and block them. I'm calmer now, and I do not think I am in the wrong, but maybe I'm too close to see what I'm missing. AITA. Author update this story. I took a lot of what you guys had to say to heart. I unblocked my family and spoke with my parents. I agreed to meet with them for lunch today. We went to the keg and talked. They said they didn't realize how I felt for those 4 years. My mom cried and said she was very sorry that I felt like they didn't care about me. I guess they read my post from before it got taken down, and they are disturbed by what I wrote. They are also upset that my girlfriend is a single mom 14 years older than me. They asked if they could meet her, and I said no. They offered me the check again, and this time I took it and thanked them. I said I would come home later. After lunch, I went to the bank and deposited it. Since we all bank at the same branch, it was easy to cash it. I made sure that the money was in my account, then I blocked them again. I just wrote my girlfriend a check for $4,312 to help her out. It was the interest on the money, more or less. She is a decent person, and she taught me a lot. She works her offloading trucks, and she deserves something good in her life. I know that isn't me. I am seeing my grandfather tomorrow. I am going to make sure he knows what I did and why. I am also going to invite him out to see my new place once I move our west. I'm spending the weekend at my girlfriend's house since her ex has the kids. Thank you all for your help and advice. What I think about this story: husband's parents charged him near or at market rate rent and made him pay for his own degree. He got an associated degree and stalled out because he was not the kind of person who could figure out how to college while working enough to pay rent. His high school hadn't given him any guidance, and the community college he went might have offered some guidance if he had known to try to track it down. They did help him plan out his associate's degree, but the how to figure out what degree you need for what career path and apply to a 4-year college and so forth was never gone over with him by any adult in his life when he was a child. And then he was working and trying to do college, and he was exhausted and burnouted. Once he moved away from home, he figured out how to get in training in a job field he wanted to be in, and he did have to move back to his parents' house to do that. And they did charge him much more reasonable rent while he did, but he still paid for it all on his own with loans and working while he was in school. He was lucky his school had job placement while you were going. He was much more able to find a job that paid enough he could work part-time instead of full-time. Thanks to everyone who was with us today. Unfortunately, that's all for today. See you tomorrow in the new parts of the video. I love everyone. Bye-bye.